Hello, this is Mrs. Politsky, and I have got 8th grade geography notes for Chapter 6, Section 1, the Physical Geography of Canada. And before we begin, you're going to need your guided note handy so that you can fill in the information that you need. Here we go. Let's talk a little bit about the physical geography of Canada. And we're going to start talking about some of those shared features that Canada and the United States have in common, like the Rocky Mountains and the coastal mountains, Niagara Falls. Bodies of waters that form part of the southern border are the St. Lawrence River, our Great Lakes. And speaking of Niagara Falls, from a moment ago, Niagara Falls is located between Ontario and New York, basically between or along the Niagara River. The falls were created by the natural differences in elevations between Lake Ontario and Lake Erie. And it's roughly 162 feet as far as the drop between these two lakes, or roughly the equivalent of a 15-story building, basically from Lake Ontario to Lake Erie. And if you've ever been to Kansas City to the Schlitterbahn, the Baruch is roughly the same size. All right, moving on. Numbers 3 through 5. The Canadian Shield. This makes up about half of Canada, primarily located along the Hudson Bay. The unfortunate part about the Canadian Shield is that it's not necessarily great farmland because the land is very rocky, it's not very flat. It would be really hard to plow, and the fact that it's got a lot of lakes and swamps makes it very difficult as far as agriculture is concerned. The Arctic region in the north is basically ice covered year round, and the Ellesmere Island, which is right there, if you can see the map, this is Greenland, this is Ellesmere Island. It contains rugged snow-covered mountains that are the home to a lot of polar bears and wolves. Canada has a much colder climate than the United States because it's further from the equator and has much higher latitudes. All right, numbers 6 through 8. In the northern and central parts of Canada, we have like a subarctic climate zone, so it's kind of this area here that's a little bit tan in color on the map. Further north is the tundra or the ice cap, which would basically be this region right in here. Central and eastern parts of Canada are humid and have a relatively mild climate. Southern Canada has a much warmer climate than obviously northern Canada because it's closer to the equator, and these areas are lower in latitude, hence they get a little bit more sunlight. Moving on. Numbers 9 and 10. The location of the Pacific Ocean is a major factor that contributes to the mild climate along the coast of British Columbia. Kind of a marine west coast climate, if you want to kind of label it as that. There's also a region known as the Grand Banks, and the Grand Banks is actually located off Newfoundland, which is right here. And this is one of those areas where you're going to find lots of fish. It's basically a fishing grounds off the coast there. Cold water from the Labrador Sea meets warm water of the Gulf Stream, which is an ideal place for plankton to grow, and fish love to eat plankton. One of the problems that they've had of recent is overfishing, and this has led to the Canadian government to post restrictions, and has kind of slowed down the fishing industry as a result of that. This man that you see here, he has a cod, which is a very popular fish that comes out of the Grand Banks. All right, numbers 11 and 12. Lumber and pulp are major resources from Canada's forest. The Canadian Shield is also valuable in terms of the mineral deposits that it has. Some of the world's leading deposits of nickel, zinc, and uranium can be found there, as well as deposits of copper, gold, and silver. Saskatchewan has large deposits of potash, which are important for making fertilizer. in which, by the way, if you go out into western Nebraska, there's also some areas there not very far from Alliance where there are deposits of potash as well. Alberta, as a province, has rich deposits of oil and natural gas, making it a very wealthy area as far as petroleum is concerned. If you ever go to Edmonton, they have a Canadian football team up there known as the Edmonton Oilers, and that has a little something to do with the main source of the economy, being the oil industry. All right. Hopefully, you got everything written down, and stay tuned, there will be more.